She had an affair with my business partner, stealing $200, $0 from our joint account, only to later claim it was a private loan. And now she's suing me for half the inheritance. How did I not see the betrayal coming? I never thought I'd find myself in this kind of mess. But here I am, trying to piece together how my wife turned out to be the biggest lying, cheating bitch I've ever met. It all started with little signs, things I brushed off, dismissing them as stress or just her being busy. But looking back now, the red flags were waving so loud I should run the other way. I just didn't want to see it. Honestly, I was blinded by what I thought was a solid marriage, built on trust, on shared dreams, on a future that felt secure. We met in college, was the girl everyone loved. She was beautiful, confident, a little bitchy in a charming way. I was smitten from the start. We married young, and for years, everything seemed perfect, until the last two. That's when the cracks started showing. She'd get unusually defensive about her phone, always claiming she was just talking to her sister or her friends, but I noticed her messages were more frequent, more secretive. She'd get a little defensive when I asked about her whereabouts, brushing me off with a quick, "You're being paranoid," or "I'm tired, can we just drop it?" The first real warning sign was about 6 months ago. We had a vacation planned and suddenly canceled last minute, claiming she was too busy at work. I didn't think much of it at first. Then I noticed her phone was always on silent, even when she was in the shower or sleeping. I'd catch her sneaking glances at her screen when she thought I wasn't looking. Little things like that should have tipped me off. But I was still convinced she loved me, that she'd never cheat. The thing is, I run a small but successful business, nothing huge, just enough to keep us comfortable. I worked my ass off to build it and was always supportive, or so I thought. But then I started noticing strange transactions in our joint bank account. Small deposits, odd withdrawals. I dismissed them at first. Maybe she was spending money on herself, or maybe it was some kind of mistake. But then I saw the bigger picture. About a month ago, I decided to check the bank statements more carefully. That's when I saw the $200, $0 missing. It was transferred to an account I didn't recognize. I sat there staring at the screen, trying to make sense of it. That kind of money, gone. I had no idea what was going on. I called the bank and they told me the transfer was legit, though they couldn't tell me who authorized it. I felt sick. My stomach dropped. I knew I had to find out what was happening. I started digging through our emails and texts. That's when I found it, an email from a guy named, who I later learned was business partner. They'd been secretly meeting, exchanging messages about projects and private loans. I was stunned. She had been lying right to my face, hiding her affair and stealing money at the same time. The worst part: she claimed the $200, $0 was a private loan she'd given, not stolen from us. I couldn't believe her lies. It was so obvious she was cheating, and now I had proof she was a thief too. When I confronted her, she spun this whole story about how she was helping out, how she needed the money for some investment she was planning, and how I was just paranoid. She called me insecure, accused me of not trusting her, but I knew better. I saw the way she looked, at the way they touched when they thought I wasn't looking. It was disgusting. I told her I knew about everything, about the affair, the money, the lies. Her reaction: she flipped her shit. Started screaming, calling me crazy, saying I was overreacting, that I was just jealous. Honestly, I felt like my world was crashing down. I trusted her for so long, built my life around her. And all along she had been lying, screwing around, stealing from us. I was furious, so furious I wanted to punch a wall. But I also felt devastated. How could she do this, to me, to our life? I had so many questions, so many emotions swirling inside: anger, betrayal, sadness. It was like my heart had been ripped out and stomped on. And yet, I knew I couldn't let her see how much it hurt. I had to keep my composure, figure out what to do next. That's where I am now, trying to process everything, trying to figure out how to get my life back on track. I don't know if I want to stay married to her or if I should just cut my losses and walk away. But one thing's clear: I've been blind for too long, and now I see everything in a new, brutal light. After I confronted that night, everything changed in an instant. She was furious, screaming at me, calling me paranoid and controlling. Everything, even the obvious proof I had in the bank statements and the emails. She kept saying it was all a misunderstanding, that was just a business associate, that she never cheated on me, and that the money was a private loan she'd given him. She looked me dead in the eyes and told me I was overreacting, that I was insecure and jealous. It was almost laughable if it hadn't been so heartbreaking. But I knew better. I could see her lies crumbling under the weight of her own words. I had seen her texting late at night, with a kind of desperation in her messages. I'd seen her sneaking around, her phone always in her hand, hiding her screen when I entered the room. And I'd seen her lie to my face with that bitchy smirk as if she thought she was untouchable. I felt my blood boil. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this after everything we'd built? I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore the evidence anymore. I was angry, so angry I was trembling. I told her I knew about the affair, about the money, about her lies. Her face twisted in anger and she started yelling even more. She accused me of being a jealous control freak, said I was just insecure because I was afraid of losing her. That was a lie. I knew the truth. She'd been cheating on me with, stealing from us and lying through her teeth. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I kept replaying everything in my mind. Her betrayal, the stolen money, her lies, her bitchy attitude when I called her out. I felt a kind of numbness mixed with pure rage. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. How did I not see it coming? How did I miss the signs? All those subtle little things, her defensive attitude, her secretive phone habits, they suddenly made so much sense. She'd been lying to my face, hiding her affair and stealing from our joint account. I started to realize that I had to do something about it. I couldn't just sit around and let her keep lying, keep stealing. I needed a plan. But what? I was so furious I could barely think straight. I knew I had to get my money back, and I also knew I had to protect myself legally. I contacted a lawyer, showed her all the evidence I had, bank statements, emails, texts. She told me I had a solid case for divorce and that I could also pursue a criminal case for theft. I was relieved and terrified at the same time. Meanwhile, was still acting like she was the victim. She started crying, saying she was sorry, that she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me. She played the victim card hard, trying to manipulate me into forgiving her. She threw in some tears, some fake apologies, but I wasn't buying it. I knew her game. She was just trying to save herself from jail or losing everything. She was bitchy, manipulative, and totally ruthless. I decided I couldn't trust her anymore. I told her I was done. I told her I was going to take everything from her, her money, her freedom to lie and cheat. I was going to make sure she paid for what she did. I wasn't going to let her walk away scot-free. I started planning my next moves, how to get the money back, how to divorce her, how to make her regret every lie she told. I felt a mix of satisfaction and dread. Satisfaction because I was finally seeing her true colors, and dread because I knew this wasn't over yet. She still had her claws in me, and I had to be smart about what I did next. The most shocking part is how calm I've become since that confrontation. I guess it's a kind of shock-induced clarity. I see her for what she really is now, an opportunist, a liar, a thief, and I'm determined to take back control of my life. I want her out of my house, out of my bank accounts, out of my mind. But I also know that revenge isn't just about money or legal battles. It's about making her understand she can't get away with this. That's what keeps me going every day, knowing I'll make her regret ever crossing me. Over the next couple of weeks, I threw myself into gathering evidence and setting my plan into motion. I knew I couldn't just confront her again and hope she'd suddenly come clean. She was too good at lying, too manipulative. I had to be strategic. I hired a private investigator to dig into her activities, just to get a clearer picture of who she was really seeing, where she was going when she was sneaking around. It was uncomfortable, but I needed proof beyond just the emails and bank statements. The pie came back with some shocking footage. Wasn't just texting, she was meeting him in hotels, staying out late, even sneaking out of the house sometimes. And it wasn't just the affair. The guy was clearly her accomplice in the theft. They'd been working together, planning how to drain the account, how to cover their tracks. It made me sick to see her so brazen, so cold. She had zero remorse, just that bitchy smirk when she lied to my face. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. With this new evidence, I knew I had enough to take legal action. I contacted a good divorce lawyer who specialized in financial crimes. We drafted a plan to freeze her assets, to claim back the money she'd stolen, and to start the process of dissolving the marriage. I also made sure to document everything: the emails, the bank transactions, the hotel receipts, even her sneaking out at night. The more I found out, the more certain I was that I needed to cut her out of my life completely. Meanwhile, kept trying to manipulate me. She'd cry, call me names, accuse me of being paranoid. She insisted she was innocent, that I was just jealous and insecure. She even tried to turn the tables, saying I was the one cheating or hiding something. But I knew the truth. I'd seen her with my own eyes, her sneaking around, her secret meetings, her lies. I wasn't going to fall for her games anymore. I told her I had proof and that I was going to take her to court for everything she stole. That shut her up for a while, but I could see the anger simmering beneath her fake tears. One day, I decided I'd had enough of her lies. I confronted her directly, told her I knew about the affair about the stolen money, and about her trying to manipulate me. I told her I was done being played. I said she could lie all she wanted, but I had the evidence now. I was going to fight her in court, and I was going to get every cent back. Her face twisted in rage. She spat at me, calling me a jealous psycho, saying I was ruining everything. But I didn't care. I finally felt like I was taking control, like I was reclaiming my life from her. The worst part was seeing how she reacted when I told her I was filing for divorce and pursuing criminal charges. She went from bitchy and confident to desperate and panicked. She begged me to drop everything, promised she'd change, that she'd stop lying and cheating. But I wasn't buying it. I told her I'd had enough of her bullshit. I said I'd make sure she paid for what she did, legally, financially, and emotionally. I knew she'd try to manipulate the situation, but I was ready. I had the evidence, the legal team, and the resolve to see this through. Honestly, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief that I finally saw her true face, and anger that I had been so blind for so long. She always played the victim, always acted like she was the innocent one, but now I knew better. I realized her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations, they all stemmed from a deep-seated need to control and deceive. I was done being her fool. I was done being her punching bag. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but I knew I had to do it for myself, for the money she stole, and for the truth. Now I'm just waiting for the legal process to kick in fully. I've already started separating my finances, changing passwords, and making sure I have copies of everything. I don't know exactly what's going to happen next, but I do know one thing: I won't let her get away with this. Not anymore. I've learned the hard way that trust is fragile and some people are just out for themselves. If there's one thing I want others to take from this, it's to keep your eyes open, because betrayal can come from the people you trust the most, and sometimes you only find out when it's too late. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I spent every free moment working with my lawyer, pulling together every piece of evidence I had: screenshots, bank statements, hotel receipts, the pies footage. I wanted to be ready for the battle ahead. Honestly, I'd never felt so betrayed and humiliated in my life. Had been so bitchy, so manipulative, acting like she was the victim even as she was screwing around behind my back and stealing from us. It was like I was living with a stranger. I also started taking more control over my life. Changed all my passwords, shut down joint accounts, and set up new ones in my name only. I didn't want her sneaking around anymore or trying to access my money. I also hired a financial advisor to help me protect what was left and to make sure I could recover some of the stolen money. The more I learned, the more I realized that lies ran deeper than I thought. She convinced herself she was untouchable, that her bitchy attitude and manipulations would get her out of everything. But I wasn't going down that easy. Meanwhile, behavior became even more erratic. She'd lash out, accuse me of being controlling, or try to guilt-trip me into dropping everything. She called me insecure, jealous, and even said I was the one cheating. That was laughable. I knew her game now. She was trying to pin everything on me to make me doubt myself, but I refused to fall for it. I knew her lies too well. Every time she threw a tantrum, I just looked at her with cold detachment. I'd had enough of her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations. One day, she confronted me in the house, furious, demanding I drop the legal case, that she'd change, that she'd stop lying if I just gave her a chance. She got bitchy, throwing accusations, crying fake tears, trying to guilt me into backing down. I looked her in the eyes and told her I wasn't interested in her sob stories. I'd already made up my mind. I told her she'd lost her chance, that I was going to take everything she stole and make her pay for her betrayal. Her face twisted in rage, and she spat at me, calling me a jealous psycho again. But I didn't care anymore. I could see the desperation in her eyes. She knew she was losing control. She tried to manipulate me with her bitchy attitude, but I was done playing her game. I told her I'd be moving out soon, that I was going to file for divorce and seek full custody of the house. I wanted her out of my life, out of my house, out of my bank account. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be powerless, just like I felt when I discovered her affair and theft. The worst part was knowing how much she'd lied to me, how she convinced herself she was clever, manipulative, untouchable. But I was finally seeing her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative bitch who thought she could get away with everything. Well, not anymore. I was determined to fight her for every penny, for every ounce of respect I deserved. And I was going to make sure she paid for her lies, her betrayal, her theft. I can't say I'm completely at peace yet, but I do feel a strange sense of clarity. I see her now, her bitchy smirk, her manipulative attitude, her sneaky little ways. I know her secrets, her lies, her manipulations. And I refuse to let her control me anymore. I've learned that some people are just out for themselves, and you have to be prepared to fight for what's right. I've spent too long trusting her, believing her lies. Now I'm ready to take back what's mine and start rebuilding from the rubble. It's not going to be easy, but I know I'll come out stronger. The legal process finally kicked into gear, and I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. On one hand, I was finally taking concrete steps to get my money back and end this nightmare. On the other, I knew wouldn't go down without a fight. She was bitchy, manipulative, and she had a way of twisting everything to her advantage. I had to be prepared for her next move, whatever that might be. I remember sitting in my lawyer's office, going over the strategy. We filed for divorce on the grounds of infidelity and financial misconduct. I also filed a claim to recover the stolen $200, $0. The fact that she had lied about the private loan and tried to pass off the theft as something innocent only made it clearer that she was trying to manipulate her way out of everything. But I had proof. Everything was documented. Her emails, her hotel receipts, the bank transactions, the pie's footage, all of it painted a clear picture of her deception. Meanwhile's bitchy attitude didn't soften. She was still trying to manipulate me, calling me paranoid, accusing me of cheating or stalking her. She'd throw tantrums, cry fake tears, and try to guilt-trip me into dropping the case. But I knew her game now. I just stayed calm, kept my distance, and let my lawyer handle the negotiations. I refused to let her get under my skin anymore. I'd already been through enough. One day she showed up at the house, bitchy as ever, demanding I drop the lawsuit and just forgive her. She said she'd changed, that she loved me and wanted to fix everything. That was the classic manipulation tactic. I looked at her coldly and told her I wasn't buying it. I told her she'd betrayed me too many times, that she'd lied and stolen from us, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this one. I said I was done being her fool. The confrontation escalated quickly. She started yelling, calling me names, trying to make me feel guilty. She accused me of controlling her, of not trusting her, of ruining her life. I just shook my head. I knew her game. She was trying to make me doubt myself, to make me feel guilty so I'd back down. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I told her she had no one to blame but herself. She had chosen to cheat, steal, and lie. Now she was going to face the consequences. The most unsettling part was when she threatened to sue me for half of the inheritance we'd received from my parents. That was her bitchy way of trying to control the situation, distract me, manipulate me. But I was prepared. I had a lawyer who told me that her chances of winning that fight were slim, especially since I had all the proof of her betrayal and theft. Still, her bitchy attitude was relentless. She acted like she was the victim, like I was the one at fault, but deep down I knew the truth. She was the one who betrayed me, who stole from us, and who thought she could manipulate her way out of everything. I decided I'd had enough of her bitchiness. I told her she needed to get her act together, that I was done playing her games. I was going to fight her in court, and I was going to win. I wanted her out of my life for good. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. I wanted her to understand that her manipulations, her lies, her stealing, none of it would go unpunished. Now, I'm just waiting for the final court date. I've already made arrangements to move out of the house. No more staying under the same roof with her manipulative, bitchy attitude. I feel a mix of relief and anger. Relief because I finally see the truth, and anger because I let her manipulate me for so long. But I also feel stronger now, more determined. I know she's going to try to fight dirty to pull more tricks, but I'm ready. I've learned that some people are just out for themselves and that you have to be prepared to fight tooth and nail for what's right. Every day, I remind myself that I deserve better, more honesty, more respect, and a life free of her bitchy manipulations. This whole ordeal has been a brutal wake-up call, but I'm not going to let her win. I've got my evidence, my lawyer, and a new outlook. It's over for her. And I can finally start healing from this betrayal. The final court date came faster than I expected, and I was ready. I sat there in the courtroom, watching sit across from me with that bitchy smirk, trying to act like she was the innocent victim. She still had that manipulative glint in her eyes, like she thought she could talk her way out of everything. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I had all the evidence, proof of her affair, the stolen money, her attempts to manipulate me, and her fake tears. I felt a strange sense of calm, knowing I was finally going to get justice. When the judge called the case, my lawyer laid out everything clearly. The affair, the theft, the lies, everything. His face started to pale as she realized how badly she was cornered. She tried to spin her usual lies, claiming she was just helping with some business, that the money was a loan, that she loved me and wanted to fix everything. But her words sounded hollow. Her manipulative, bitchy attitude wasn't fooling anyone now. The judge listened carefully, then delivered her verdict. She ordered to pay back every cent of the stolen $200, $0 plus interest. She also awarded me full custody of the house and the children, since I had proven her untrustworthiness. His face twisted in anger and frustration, but she had no leg to stand on. Her manipulations had finally caught up with her. She was told to stay away from the joint accounts, and she was barred from making any financial decisions without my consent. Watching her walk out of that courtroom, I finally felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The betrayal, the lies, the theft, all of it was finally out in the open. I felt a strange mixture of relief, anger, and sadness. Relief that I'd fought for myself and won. Anger that she had tried to ruin everything. Sadness because I'd lost the marriage I once believed in. But deep down, I knew I was better off without her. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I moved out of the house, got a new place, and started fresh. I cut all contact with she was bitchy, manipulative, and toxic. I realized I'd wasted too much time trusting someone who didn't deserve it. The experience taught me a brutal lesson about trust, betrayal, and the importance of watching out for yourself. Looking back, I can see how blind I was for so long. I ignored the signs, dismissed my gut feelings, and let her manipulate me into thinking everything was fine. Now I know better. I understand that some people are just out for themselves, bitchy, selfish, and manipulative. I've learned to trust my instincts and to be cautious. Most importantly, I've learned that revenge isn't just about getting the money back or winning the court case. It's about reclaiming your dignity and knowing you fought for what's right. I don't want anyone else to go through what I did, but if they do, I hope they remember, trust your instincts, keep your eyes open, and never let anyone, no matter how bitchy or manipulative, take control of your life. Because in the end, the truth always comes out and justice will find a way.